Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley, and wow, we got an extremely wonderful, touching show that we're going to talk about today. It's one of the topics that we have not talked about on our show so far. So we got this absolutely fantastic guest that's going to come on and share a lot of things that we all need to know, we all need to understand because every now and then in life, I'm talking about we all need spiritual support. We all need help. We all need to know that someone cares, even when we're going through trials and tribulations. So I am so excited to be talking to this young man today and just let him educate us and teach us and lead us and guide us. So I'm not going to give it away yet because I can't even start the show without talking to my executive producer and co-host, Dr. Michelle Cooley. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, and it's hot. It's hot here. My gosh. But I work with a couple of people who live in Palm Desert, California, so they're used to a different type of heat. But my goodness, just give me a lot of trees and some shade. But other than that, I'm doing good.
Wow, I'm excited about the show today. I'm excited about this young man that's going to come on and share some things with us. And wherever you're watching this at, whichever platform that you're on, whether you're watching from E360 Television, Transfer TV, YouTube, LinkedIn, and over 35 other live streaming mechanisms, welcome to the show. And if you want to be part of the conversation, all you have to do is just go to the comments. Ask this great guest, Michelle is getting ready to introduce you to any questions that you might have. And I promise you, we'll get you an answer. Michelle, can you do the honors and introduce the title of the show, purpose of the show, and introduce this absolutely fantastic guest?
Oh, of course. So, the title of today's show is Spiritual Support During Medical Treatment and Care. And we're getting to know ordained minister, pastor, podcast host, and the National Director of Specialized Outreach at the City of Hope Hospitals, Reverend Percy McCray, and talk about why supporting one's faith may help impact a cancer journey and learn about some practical ways to support one's faith and discuss the pitfalls to avoid when supporting one's faith while on a cancer journey, and discuss as a patient how to appropriately engage someone on your healthcare team who does not share your faith. So let's talk to you about this guest today. Reverend Percy McCray Jr. has spent more than 20 years ministering to cancer patients and their caregivers at Cancer Treatment Centers of America. He recognizes cancer care ministry as a special calling from God and considers faith a key but often overlooked component of a cancer treatment. He now serves as the National Director of Specialized Outreach at the City of Hope Hospitals. And he oversees our Journey of Hope, a nationwide cancer care ministry training and support program. His engaging personality and deep passion for pastoral care ministry has made Reverend McCray a fan favorite among patients, pastors, and his podcast audience, which we will discuss. So please welcome to the show the National Director of Specialized Outreach, City of Hope Hospitals, Reverend Percy McCray.
Welcome to the show, Reverend Percy. How you doing, sir? How you doing, sir?
I am doing fabulous. And again, thank you to first Mrs. Dr. Cooley and to you, sir. Appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to our conversation today.
I'm looking forward to the conversation as well. And wow, it's just uh, it's just a pleasure having you on. We kind of did our research and all the great things that you're doing out there, and just to talk about this most important topic that we're going to talk about today is going to enlighten everyone. First of all, Reverend Percy, can you tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about you, where you grew up, and just tell them what make you click?
Yeah, I'm originally from the south side of Chicago, so I'm a city boy, and I tell people that with great pride. Grew up, born and raised on the far south side. Basically at the end of the day, what really makes me click is the ability to inspire, encourage, and to help people. That's really my heart's desire. That's the work that I've been engaged in for the last close to 3 decades now. I'm a second generation, third generation a minister on my mom's side of the family. My uncle pastored a relatively large church at the time on the south side of Chicago. And so here I am now, working with the cancer community. I've traveled extensively, radio, TV, etc., speaking, teaching, seminar, facilitating around the topic and subject of spiritual care, cancer, faith, and medicine. And so I'm delighted to be here with you today. But again, I'm motivated around the idea of helping people fight back. I grew up on the south side of Chicago running from bullies all my life. So I translated that same energy to fighting the bully of cancer and helping people work through that dynamic.
Wow. So you're doing so many things out there, and just ministering cancer patients and people that need that type of help. I mean, it takes a special type of person to be able to do that and be able to relate. Can you tell our listeners and viewers who were some of your role models when you was growing up? Who were some of the people that inspired you to stay in line, to move forward? To go out and do good. Share that with us.
Well, yeah, first and foremost, my parents. I have to give a huge shout out to Gwendolyn, Aretha McCray, and Percy Wilson McCray Sr. They were my two first mentors. I tell everyone everything that I initially learned before I went into the rest of the world, I learned at my mother's dining room table. And so with that, two great parents who instilled and basically provided for me resources to grow and to develop and become all that I am today. And then, of course, I had a couple other people along the way as my childhood evolved. My childhood pastor, who is now gone home to be with the Lord, Pastor Claude Wyatt, and then a Chicago journalist by the name of Vernon Jarrett, who I had an opportunity to meet. He was a pretty big deal in Chicago at that time, and had an opportunity to sit down and spend some time with him. And he just gave me such great words of wisdom and nuggets around growth and development and leadership and being an inspirer. And so those are some of the folks that really helped to shape who I am today. And I'm grateful for all of their input in my life.
Wow. So with all of this and the inspiration and all of that guidance, and what would be, if you had to describe yourself with adjective, what would be that adjective and why?
Yeah, I would describe myself as a determined overcomer. That's who I am. That's who I've always been. I was never the smartest guy in school. I was never the tallest or biggest person in growing up, but I was also very determined always to work through whatever, dynamics, whatever roadblocks. And so I would say determined overcomer, because first and foremost, I learned kind of on the tough streets of Chicago that, if you were going to move forward, you have to kind of work through some challenges, some dynamics of kind of the environment and the community. You had to have some thick skin at some point. You had to kind of have some resolve to not allow barriers to block you and to overcome those, to become that which you desire to be. And lo and behold, when I got into the environment of the cancer space and the healthcare space from a ministerial perspective, that's exactly what I then became for others, is to help cheerlead and encourage them to do the same, because cancer is a tough disease. And for many people, psychologically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, they're going to have to work through some hardships to overcome that. And so that's what I've been doing. And that's who I am as a human being, personally and professionally. So I am a motivated, a determined overcomer.
So what, is there any path that led you, that you had one of those aha moments that where God touched you and said, okay, now it's time for you to do my work. I know why you've been doing your own thing all this time, but I done blocked this road right here, and either you're gonna have to face or you're gonna have to jump over, however you're gonna get past that road. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I had a very distinct moment in time that I remember as if it was yesterday. I was 27 years old. I knew that I was called into the ministry when I was about 15, and I ran and avoided that. I didn't want to have anything to do with the ministry. Wanted to be a basketball player. I was a pretty decent athlete, And then, life happened. I kind of floundered. And, once I became an adult, I decided that I was going to stray away from all of that and do my own thing, as you stated. And at 27 years old, my dad had a horrific incident where he was abducted in his vehicle on the south side of Chicago late one night. And he jumped out of the vehicle while the car was taking off and got hit by a truck. And my dad was disabled at that moment until this very day. And that was a real wake-up call for me. That was when the alarm went off, and I could hear God say very clearly that, your life can be easily taken away from you. What are you going to do? And are you going to basically do what I asked and called you to do? And that was an aha moment for me. It truly was. And it shook me out of my state of sleep and slumber and kind of just wandering about, if you will, experimenting to a certain extent with life and getting serious about the call upon my life. And I did just that. And as that was done, a series of events then took place that led me to go back to school. I received my ministerial training in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then had the opportunity to be introduced to an organization called, at that time, Cancer Treatment Centers of America, by a mutual friend or a mutual person that I knew who worked there. And they was inquiring, looking for a chaplain. And I was not interested in chaplaincy at all, but I thought that I would just kind of take a look and see. And so I reluctantly had a conversation with this organization that supported cancer patients. And they were looking for someone to provide ministry and support to cancer patients and their caregivers while inside of a local hospital. And here I am almost 3 decades later. Cancer Treatment Centers of America has been recently bought by City of Hope Hospitals out of California. And so I'm going on my 3rd decade of ministry to cancer patients and their caregivers. And thank God that when I showed up, he did not give my job away to anyone else. He waited for me.
How tough was it being a cancer survivor yourself? And I mean, just knowing how some of the patients that you deal with or feeling, and that you learn from that and able to share what you was going through with them and let them know that God always got you.
Well, what's interesting about this dynamic, Dr. Cooley, and I tell people this all the time, 4 years ago in 2 weeks, I will be a 4-year early stage 1 colon cancer survivor. And I thank God for that. I was diagnosed. I had a golf ball size tumor that was found, and I had a third of my colon removed and resectioned. I tell people just refer to me as a Reverend Semicolon, as a good friend of mine once said, just to kind of break the and create some levity with the conversation. But interesting to your question, I'm going to reverse it. I had been, ministering and supporting cancer patients for, 20 plus years and never had really an incident or relationship with cancer directly. And then it was my turn to become a cancer patient and get on the other side of the table. So what I often tell people is that what I was able to do is that I was able to take what I learned from the patients that I supported and the years of support that I provided to them, and I basically applied it to my own situation. It was, in essence, like a dress rehearsal for me. And I was so prepared for that moment when I heard the words, "You have cancer," because literally I had been doing this for so long with so many. And now I'm able to say to cancer patients, I know how you feel. I know what it feels to hear those words wash over you, that you have cancer, and how you have to really stop and come to terms with that and really focus around who you are, who God is to you, and ultimately what is the process that needs to be taking place. So I really learned from that patient population that helped prepare me for when it was my turn, quite frankly.
Wow. And being able to say, I know how you feel, and you already been there, and you share that with them.
Yep.
That gives a person a sense, well, he really or she really knows how I'm feeling. We're going to take a station break, but we're going to come back and we're going to pick it up with Reverend Percy, and we're going to talk some more. We're going to go a little bit deeper into the conversation. So if you want to be part of the conversation, whichever platform you're watching on, all you have to do is just go to the comments, ask him any questions that you might have. I promise you, I'll get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll be back shortly after the break.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, or hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, there is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? In everything that you do.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I'm here with my absolutely fantastic guest, Reverend Percy McCray. And wow, just listening to the first segment, getting a chance to know him a little bit, and knowing that he is a cancer survivor and he's ministering and helping people out, and by him experiencing survivorship himself, I believe that God has planted things in his head where he's able to share that with the people that he's come in contact with and give them some ease. So I want to pick it up right there. Can you tell us your path that led you to become an ordained minister and pastor, and how does that relate to you right now on being able to minister cancer patients and people that truly need our help?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I had a very serendipitous path, and probably like many people, to ministry, if you will. It was not a straight path. I took a few early exits prematurely, made some mistakes, floundered, wandered a bit, experimented on some level with regard to trying to figure out who I really was. I was listening to your segment on the commercial break about learning to love yourself and et cetera. And it's so true. And once I really kind of came to terms with some of the internal dynamics of who God really created me to be, despite mistakes that were made, despite some bad choices that I had made, I came back full circle to understand that there was a call upon my life, there was a purpose upon my life, and then began to set out on that path. And so educated myself first, went to Bible college, as I stated earlier, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and received some didactic training around pastoral care. The design was to go and start my own local church. And then I was interrupted with an organization called Cancer Treatment Centers of America, now City of Hope, and started working within the four walls of creating ministry support to cancer patients inside of a medical facility, which was very different and very unique, unlike anything that I was accustomed to. And that's where I really blossomed and understood what the real call upon my life was. I did pastor a church for about 6 years. And then I began working in the space of training and developing local churches to start their own cancer care ministries called Our Journey of Hope. And that's where I believe the Lord told me I needed to make a diversion away from pastoring a local church and spend all of my time on developing this international program that has now been in operation for close to 20 years, where I now have helped to facilitate a curriculum that is now being used to help churches start cancer care ministries all across the world. We have churches in the United States, in the Caribbean, in Europe, in Asia, Africa, South America, Central America. Well, close to about 4,000 churches that have been trained through this program, this free program, on how to start cancer care ministry. Because, Doc, I found out something very interesting. There was a lot of pastors and a lot of people that were out, teaching and preaching the word of God inside of local churches, but there were very few local churches that had any type of understanding and emphasis and focus around healthcare ministry and specific to cancer. And that became my unique niche and space that the Lord had carved out for me. And he said, this is the area that I want you to focus and dedicate your time and your giftings to. And that's exactly what I have done. We're now at this point, with this program, I have helped to influence close to 4,000 churches internationally with starting cancer care ministries inside of their local churches all across the world.
Wow. So how did you guys evolve? You said you started small.
Yep.
I wouldn't say small, but however God did planet to being around the world and being able to minister people that you don't come face to face with.
Right.
And so do you ever get any feedback? How did that start, first of all? But do you ever get any feedback from anybody that's overseas or that you minister that you haven't talked to?
I do. As a matter of fact, I do. So it's interesting because we have an ongoing nurturing campaign that for every church or every person that inquires, and for those who are interested, again, this is a free cancer care leadership training program on how you can start this type of ministry inside of your local church. If interested, please go to Our Journey of Hope, ourjourneyofhope.com, and look at our website. But we engage with everyone that comes in contact with us, and certainly the graduates of our cohorts of our online classes. And the way that this really got started, Doc, is this way. There was a patient inside of the facility at the Chicago hospital that I worked bedside for 18 years. And through my engagement with her, was very ill and was not doing very well. And because of the day-to-day ministry that we were providing to her inside of the hospital, not in her local church, she began to get strengthened, of course, with good medical treatment and care, because we can't forget, and we may get into some of this, that good medical care should not be substituted by just the idea of utilizing one's faith only, that there is an amalgamation between these two disciplines that really makes sense and matters when they're applied appropriately. That a month later, when she came back to our facility, I did not recognize her. Previously, she couldn't hold a pen in her hand. She couldn't walk in the hospital under her own power. And a month later, I didn't recognize her. She said that it had a lot to do with the spiritual support that she received while receiving her chemotherapy and her radiation. And she asked me if I would sit down and talk with her local pastor and his friends in his pastoral consortium in his community, and share with them what we do at the bedside from a spiritual care perspective. And that was the first, if you will, training that I did with a group of pastors. And they all sat and they said, if we only had this type of training when we were in Bible college or in seminary, because we knew nothing about how to address the issues of mental, emotional, physical sickness and disease from a practical perspective. And that's when the Lord affirmed to me that it was time for me to scale that and make that available to any and all congregations throughout the United States that would be interested in starting a healthcare ministry. And some of the reactions that we get back are just simply amazing. This changed my church. It changed my ministry. There's a large church in Texas near the McKinney, Texas area that basically started their own cancer care ministry. And now they're influencing other churches to start cancer care ministry. And so we just took the model of Jesus, if you will, and that was, if we train those that we have access to, then they will go influence those that they have access to. And exponentially, this has grown to well over 4,000 churches that we are aware of that now have been trained to engage in cancer care ministry inside of the four walls of their local faith communities, congregations, and etc.
Wow. So you guys started with patients, then you started in the ministry, but you also, you do the caregivers, you train the caregivers, or you talk to the caregivers.
Yeah.
That's can you talk, can you tell us how you got that started? Because that's different than a lot of things. I understand the patients and I understand the ministry, but how did you get the caregivers involved in this?
Well, see, this is exactly the dynamic and the byproduct of my years of bedside ministry to cancer patients. And if you've never done bedside ministry to cancer patients, you really want to understand this dynamic. What became very clear after many years is that there is virtually no cancer patient that I am aware of that received any type of recovery, wellness, and wholeness of a battle with cancer who did that alone or by themselves. But what I learned at the bedside of patients inside of the hospital is that many of the caregivers were mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually burned out because they were so focused on providing care and support to their loved one that they ignored their own mental, emotional, physical needs. And so within the hospital itself, we began to recognize that we need to also provide support for the caregiver who is providing care to the patient. And so we created, we have a curriculum. It's several chapters long. And one of the chapters of the free cancer care training program at ourjourneyofhope.com is caring for the caregiver, looking for certain signs. Yeah, and recognize. And so by recognizing the needs of the caregiver, we understood that those caregivers need to be addressed. They need to be spoken to. They need to, in some cases, need to have a very separate set of conversation away from their loved one who is the actual patient. In some cases, the caregiver, we found out, is actually struggling more than the patient is mentally, emotionally, and may also be having some of their own healthcare issues. So we cannot ignore the paradigm of talking about supporting cancer and not include the caregiver and ignore them. They are a vital part of that equation at the end of the day.
Wow, this is a Reverend Percy. This is so big. It's so to include all three mechanisms: the patient, the ministry, and the caregivers.
Yes.
Wow, that's genius. And that's and I do believe that what you just said about the caregivers, because normally the caregivers is a loved one that's taking care of their loved ones, and just to see that suffering and whatever that is day to day, it's got to have a toll on them mentally, emotionally, physically as well. We're gonna take a station break, but we're gonna come back and I want to know what type of training does it require for to be involved in a journey, our journey of hope, and just go back a little bit deeper into this because this is so intriguing. So, if you want to be part of this great conversation, all you have to do is go to the comments and just ask this great guest of mine any question that you might have, and I promise you we'll get you an answer. It's your life. I'm Dr. James J.C. Cooley. We'll be back shortly after the break. to James Cooley Show. It's Your Life, and Reverend Percy McCray. Man, I can just tell you right now, I can feel it. I can feel it in the air. God is working through you, brother. You out there doing a lot of great things, and you healing. You healing people that have pain in their heart, and continue to do all the great things that God has planted in you for purpose. And I'm sure that the people that are listening to the show right now that are dealing with loved ones or maybe themselves um, feel pretty good about some of the things that your organizations are doing. And you just went international. You added all these, and you're the national director, outreach, and congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Congratulations on all these things. So if you want to be part of the conversation, all you have to do is just go to the comments. Ask this great man any question that you might have. We got a lot of show to go. So if you want to be part of it, ask. Reverend Percy, what does the training requires for a person if they wanted to be part of our journey of hope? What exactly would they have to go through from whichever level that might be?
Great question, my friend. And we've made this program accessible to everyone. So I want to be very clear. And to any church organization, regardless of your religious denominational affiliation, large or small, we have 2 days of free training that we offer, and you can do that virtually online. And so the first thing that I want to make sure that everyone gets is please go to ourjourneyofhope.com. ourjourneyofhope.com. And you can go to our website. You can see some information that'll kind of spell out to you what the program is. But once you register, and you can register right online, everything is free. We provide all of the curriculum, all of the materials, all of the follow-up materials, training videos, and etc. Once you graduate from one of our classes, there is no obligation at all from you. You do not have to be a pastor. You do not necessarily have to be a minister, just someone who has a heart for God's people and says, I would like to support cancer patients. You can attend this training. So we've made it very accessible for anyone. And if you attend those 2 half days, you get a certificate, and then you will be given access to all of the support materials that I've just mentioned that then you can utilize to start training and recruiting inside of your local church with your local faith leader support, of course, to start a cancer care ministry inside of your local congregation, large or small. We've worked with very large churches and we've worked with really small churches. So it really doesn't matter, or faith organizations. And that and once you graduate from the class and participate, then you can go back to your local faith community and begin right away. We give you all of the steps. We help you with the recruitment. We give you PowerPoint presentations. We give you brochure templates, everything that you'll need to get started. So we've made it very, very, very user-friendly.
Wow. You mentioned something a minute ago. You mentioned that you don't have to be totally faith-based, or if different religions and all that doesn't really matter, about that. Why do you believe supporting a person's faith during their cancer journey can be impactful? And what are some of the practical ways to support a person's faith that might not be in line with yours or his or hers?
Yeah, this is a great question, Dr. Cooley, and there's a lot built into that. So I want to be very clear. You're exactly right. One of the things that when I started this work over 3 decades ago that I did not anticipate was being able to expand beyond my small, limited, myopic perspective of my religious orientation or my church affiliation. I was exposed to people from all different walks of life, social, economic, political backgrounds, as well as spiritual orientations. And it really helped me to grow. I am steeped in and anchored in a belief system that I hold near and dear to my heart. But I've been able to expand to be able to support people and relate to people outside of maybe my orientation to understand them. And this is where the whole conversation of spiritual support becomes really crucial. And so with that, to answer your question, first and foremost, When people are dealing with sickness and disease, cancer, when they're being challenged mentally and emotionally, they have trauma, there's been some negativity in their life. One of the things that they do not need to have a gatekeeper to get permission to utilize is spiritual care. Spiritual care can be self-managed. You don't need a prescription. You don't need a doctor's permission. You need no one's permission to access your spiritual belief system. And that creates an empowerment. Everything that your show is about, everything that I see on your site is about being empowered, taking charge, being who you are. Well, we really can't be the best of who we want to be until we tap into who we are spiritually first. And we don't need anyone's permission to tap into our sense of spirituality. So spiritual care can be self-managed, and it gives patients, in particular cancer patients, a sense of control. The first thing that a cancer patient feels right away is a loss of control. There are certain things that they can no longer eat. There may be certain things that they may not be able to do physically. So there's a loss of control, right? Well, being spiritually nurtured and accessing one's spiritual support system, you can manage that and you can take control of that. You can pray as long as you want. You can pray as loud as you want. You can listen to your favorite religious or spiritual music or your sacred writings or readings. You can do that without anyone limiting you. So spiritual care is self-managed. Number two, spiritual care and spiritual support may greatly enhance one's outlook on being hopeful. There is research that now says this, that people who have a spiritual orientation, an abiding faith of some sort that they hold near and dear to their heart, when they are going through the rigors of treatment and cancer, mental, emotional, and physical, they tend to be more hopeful at the end of the day. And we know that hope is a very powerful spiritual component. And so when we talk about being spiritually supported, people who are spiritually engaged tend to be hopeful. They tend to follow their medical protocols. They tend to work through and push through the challenges sometimes that comes with being a cancer patient. And so spiritual support allows people to be hopeful. And then the third thing is that people of faith are more likely to follow through with their medical care plans. They don't tend to give up or give in when things get tough because they dig deep within themselves and tie into and touch upon their faith that says that they can do all things through God, that all things are possible to them that believe. And that, believe it or not, can help people work through challenges and negative circumstances that may be for a season, but not permanent, but they need to be able to push through that barrier. Those are some of the benefits of why supporting people spiritually during the cancer journey is super impactful and important.
Wow. So you packed a whole lot into that. And, I was getting ready to call you Doc and everything because you already there. but one of the things that you just talked about, and I believe that we have what we call birthrights. I'm talking, we are born common in the same common goals. And birthrights are confidence, courage, hope, belief, but most importantly, faith.
Yes.
Most importantly, faith. You mentioned hope. As long as you got hope and you got faith, you can achieve.
Yes.
And mentally, emotionally, physically, you can stay stable with the right mindset that you can move forward with whatever situation or circumstances that you might be in, whether it's cancer, whether it's this, whether it's that. And as long as you got a supporting team. So those are common birthrights, but we also have that birthright that God, I believe, give us our own fingerprint.
Yes.
That separates us from everybody else. You can be identical twins, but it separates us. And I call that, that's your purpose in life.
Yes.
Meaning there's the start and finish date and everything we do, Doc. There's a start, and I call you Doc because that's how you're talking. But we have to be able to open up our mind, our heart, our body, and our soul, and be able to dig deep inside of us and get rid of the pity.
Yes.
Get rid of all of these other things, all these negative thoughts, even when we're going through trials and tribulations. And so that's what the message that you just said triggered me off while I'm talking about this one.
Well, yeah.
So,
Faith and hope is the dynamic duo of God. When you put those two together and work them and engage them in your life, as you said, your birthright and then your personal purpose-driven rights, now you have something that can engage a person to climb the highest mountain. And that's why when you asked me earlier, how do I describe myself? I'm a determined overcomer, because I understood and learned that what my birthright was, and then what my purposeful personal rights were, and I put those together, that created a dynamic of faith and hope that feed off of each other. And it's going to be pretty difficult to keep a person from moving in a forward direction who has those dynamics working in their heart.
And once they understand that,
that's right,
Reverend Percy, once they understand that those are two different but common, everybody got the common.
That's right.
But only you understand the DNA, the purpose, and you have to dig deep inside and find it. You know, we're gonna take a station break. You done got me started as well. I am truly enjoying this conversation. We're gonna take a station break, and if you want to be part of this conversation, all you have to do is go to the comments on whichever platform that you're watching this from. Whichever, I see a lot of people overseas watching. Whichever platform you're watching this from, all you do is, if you want to be part, just go to the comments and ask this great man, Reverend Percy McCray, which I call him the Doc, any question that you might have, and I promise you, we'll get you an answer. It's your life. I'm Dr. James J.C. Cooley. We'll be back shortly after the break.
Noah Dingley here, producer of The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life. And the new audio version of James' book, Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet, is a must-have. James shares his true life story of struggle and success in America. It's both a cautionary tale and a roadmap to achieving the American dream. Get the new audio version of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James Cooley on Amazon.com or wherever audiobooks are sold.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and Reverend McCray, you had me going there because purpose, hope, and faith. Long as we understand those and believe in those, I believe that our great Lord and Savior is going to guide us and lead us
Yes.
on the path that He has for us. And regardless of what might be our ailment or trials and tribulation, we just have to maintain that faith and be confident in what we do. So with that being said, I would be remiss if I did not mention my book, A Black Man Point of View, Mind, Body, and Soul, was released 3 weeks ago as #1 release, #1 bestseller, and basically a Black man point of view, mind, body, and soul. What it talks about is why we as Black men think the way that we do, based on our past generations, trials and tribulations, based on 400 years of colonization, slavery, and etc., and why we should not be mad and pissed and blame other races and these for where we at today, because our forefathers and ancestors took care of all those things to put us in the position where we can go out and lead and we can engage with everybody. And it's about love, not hate, and engage with all people, learn to love all people. So this is roadmap is why many of us think that we do, but it's also a healing mechanism where you sit back and say, yes, all these things happen, but hey, I love God. God planted the seed, and let's all work together. Let's all understand why we feel this way, and let's all love each other, regardless of race, creed, color, and all of that stuff. So you can pick my book up and anywhere that they sell book, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and any platforms. It's a Black man point of view, mind, body, and soul. Reverend Percy, I want to get back to this because, man, I tell you, just listening to you just on the show, what are some of the misconceptions that people have and patients are going through as it relate to the patient and the caregivers and a lot of others? I mean, when it comes to healthcare, in many cases, you mentioned something about not getting the right healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah, we could start right there. You're right. That could be a show all unto itself, and it's a great question, and it's a legitimate question. One of the things that I would certainly say would be one of the biggest misconceptions at the end of the day for people, for cancer patients, is not thinking or believing that you have to accept what a doctor initially tells you as a first opinion. You as a patient, I talk about it almost every other show on my podcast, healthhopeandinspiration.com. If you're interested, please tune in to healthhopeandinspiration.com. 400,000 subscribers that listens to me on a weekly basis. We talk about, and I hear from cancer patients who say it all the time, that they did not accept the first opinion that of a doctor that they sat in front of that gave them. They went and got a second opinion, or they went and got a third opinion, particularly if they didn't feel comfortable with the relationship. Let me say this, Dr. Cooley, and I want to say it loud and clear. You as a patient, going back to your birthright, you have a right to decide who you allow to treat you. You do not have to accept a doctor's recommendation just because he has a physician in front of his or her name. You have a right to get a second or third opinion. So the misconception is you do not have to accept the very first thing that is said to you, particularly if you feel uncomfortable, if you feel that there's a check there, something doesn't make sense to you, you don't feel like that you've been adequately heard in the conversation, you weren't included in the dialogue. This should be a partnership. And if you don't feel that way with whomever that physician is, you have a right to find another doctor or another physician and ask for a second or third opinion. And I would encourage everyone to do that just to validate the first and second opinion. That way you feel confident that you have gotten complete and adequate information. Unfortunately, I've known of scenarios where people have gotten bad information, or for whatever reason, that assessment was not as thorough as it could have been or should have been, or certain options for whatever reason was not presented to those individuals. So that's a huge misconception that I think that every cancer patient and their caregiver should eradicate immediately. The next thing is that you have a right to ask your doctor questions. Yes, I know that they went to school for a lot of years. They have the shingle hanging on the front door, but you as the patient and the consumer have a right to ask questions of your medical team, of your healthcare team, and certainly of your doctor. And if your doctor tells you or begins to signal to you that you're asking too many questions, or they're uncomfortable with you asking questions, that could very well be a signal that you need to find a different healthcare organization or physician or care team for you to sit down and trust, because you need to be comfortable and feel that you are part of and you are engaged with that experience from top to bottom. So those are two big misconceptions that I want everyone to understand. As your birthright, you have a right to do and you have a right to follow up on.
Wow. We're down to the last 2.5 minutes of the show. This is you. I'm gonna tell you, Reverend Percy, I have to have you back on if you.
I was gonna say we have to do another show.
No, unless you're telling me we can't do it. Okay, but I have to have you. But can you tell our viewers and our listeners about your podcast? How can they watch it? How can they get in touch with you? How can they do this? You're so dynamic, and that might not be enough time. So let's try it.
Yep. So the two ways that you can reach out to me and the two avenues of work that I focus on a daily basis is, if you're interested in free cancer care leadership training in your local church, go to ourjourneyofhope.com. And all of that information will direct you to registration and information, ourjourneyofhope.com. If you want to get in contact with me to hear my podcast, or if you have a cancer story that you think you'd like to tell or share, you can reach me at healthhopeandinspiration.com. Healthhopeandinspiration.com. There's a navigation button that'll say connect. It'll drop down. You can either ask me a question or you can leave me contact information so that we can engage with each other. But certainly you can subscribe to the show, where you can receive every week one of our free weekly podcasts of a dynamic conversation of a cancer patient, a caregiver, a doctor, a physician, a clinician, a nutritionist, someone that is engaged in the cancer conversation, that'll inspire you, educate you, and certainly give you information that'll allow you. journeyofhope.com and healthhopeandinspiration.com.
Wow. Reverend Percy, we are out of time. I want to thank you again, and I'm dead serious. Can I get you back on within a month if you have time?
Yes, sir.
Or we'll go through your people, however that is. I mean, I don't want to overstep nobody, but this has been such a wonderful interview that we have to have part two, some way or another. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I like to always thank the executive producer and co-host, Dr. Michelle Cooley, because she just put together extraordinary shows and hook up with extraordinary guests. But most importantly, I'd like to thank our viewers and our listeners for tuning into the James Cooley Show, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I just want everybody to go away with this. You got purpose. You got birthright, confidence, courage, hope, believe, and faith. But always dream big, think big, and be big at everything you do. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. It's your life. See you tomorrow.